Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome IDEO Fellow Doug Solomon.
Hello, everyone. Okay, you guys. Thank you. All right. Well, please sit down. I'm really delighted to be here. We have a... Oh, sorry. I want it to be Pierre. We have a really interesting and diverse panel, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion. The topic that we're going to talk about today is the role of corporations in sport. That's come up several times during many of the other discussions that we've already had, and in some of the task forces there have been some positive comments and also some negative comments about corporations, and I'm hoping that today we can really dig into this topic and that all of you here who are participating can think up some really challenging questions that we can pose to the panel. First, let me just introduce our distinguished panel. And starting on my left here, we have Pierre Blaillot. Pierre is the CEO of SNCF Geodis and chairman of Geodis, and the former chairman of Paris Saint-Germain, which is probably a very popular group for many of you. Sitting next to him is Michel Combe, who's the former CEO of Vodafone Europe. Next to him is Daryl Jelinek, who is the general manager of Olympics and Paralympic Games for the Coca-Cola Company. Past him is Bernard Mariette, the former CEO of Quicksilver, a company I think many of you know and may be wearing right now, and currently the president and CEO of Coalition. And finally, at the end is Amy Milslegel. She's the marketing vice president for Olympic operations from the Dow Chemical Corporation. So we've got some really, really interesting people on the panel and lots to talk about today. Several of the panelists were involved in the London Olympics, and so I'd like to start off maybe learning a little bit about their experience there because it's so fresh. Amy, I think I'd like to start with you. Dow did something pretty interesting at the London Olympic Games that's probably a little different from what many other companies have done, and it's somewhere on that spectrum of CSR and sponsorship, and maybe you could share with us what you did.
So for those of you who don't know, Dow is a global chemical company. We're B2B, and we just became a top partner of the Olympics in 2010. And we're one of the few B2B sponsors that are actually out there. So our activation tends to look very differently than a lot of my B2C colleagues. So when we came to London, and as we look at the Olympics, we wanted to make sure that we got out to the world the message of who Dow is and what we can do from a science and technology perspective. And so what we did was London needed what they called a stadium wrap. They were after the most sustainable stadium ever built. They used as little steel as possible, and it needed a decoration to go around it to help cover up the least amount of steel that's been used. And so Dow invented the first ever non-PVC wrap that actually went around the stadium, and this technology that was developed, while it may sound like just a simple wrap for a stadium, it's actually opened up a new world of textile architecture. So it's going to be a new type of infrastructure that can be used permanently in infrastructure around the world. Once the Olympics were done, we wanted to make sure that we continued with that sustainability story and reuse and repurpose this wrap. And so we found homes for all of the 306 panels, including donating more than half to Africa and Brazil to be used as sun shading for schools down there. So children that they could go outside and play, they could play sport, they could learn, do art, etc. out in the hot sun and be covered from the sun. Mm-hmm. So it was a great demonstration of what Dow can do from a science and technology perspective, as well as demonstrating our CSR capabilities.
Great, that's a really inspiring example. Thanks. Daryl, I'd like to go to you next. You're with Coke. Coke has been involved with the Olympics since 1928 and is probably the longest running sponsor, I would imagine, of the modern Olympic Games. And I'm wondering, what was your experience like with the London Games, and what did you take away from that in terms of learning?
Well, The London Olympic Games was truly a great success story. Lord Coe mentioned in his opening comments yesterday that one of the key success features was the partnership between the public and the private sectors. And it truly was a great partnership. And I think the reason it was a great partnership is because we all bought in to Lord Coe's vision. His vision was to leave a lasting legacy and inspire the youth of the world. His vision was to leave a sustainable legacy and also to stage the greenest games. And I think working across all of the sponsors, with the IOC, with the London Organising Committee, we all bought into that vision and we all worked very closely in partnership to deliver what, I guess we're all biased, but was a great Games in London this summer.
Interesting. Thank you. Pierre, I'd like to turn to you because you were also involved in the Olympic Games, but in a way that was, I think, very innovative and unique. And of course, all of your companies are very different. Could you explain to us your approach in really investing in people?
Yeah, it's a completely different approach. It means we don't have any commercial partnership with the events or with champion. Of course, we did sponsor from time to time a certain location of our country, France, some teams, soccer team mainly, but it's very small. The reason why is, first of all, because it's very expensive, and we are a modest company. The second reason is we are in B2B business, means we don't have to let know our brand. We have relationship with our customer. We don't go through advertising or sponsorship. But on the reverse, we are involved in supporting the athletes, the champion. It means we have for a long time recruited some dozen of athletes, champion. They work for our company. Of course, they don't work for the company during the time they are preparing competition, but they know that they will stay in the company. They are employees of the company. And we support them from financial point of view, of course. And it's an opportunity to support sports for Olympic Games, but also for Paralympic Games. Sports like rowing, jumping, swimming, track and field. So not necessarily a big sport as basketball or soccer. And it's a very, very exciting experience because the consequence is that our people, our employees, first of all, during the period of the Olympic Games, for example, in London, they are excited by the performance of our champion. There is a kind of appropriation, you know? And the fact that we have associated a company with this champion, we are our employees, is very good for the mood of the people, for the passion in the company. And what I have experienced during the last London Games, thanks the victory, for example, of Lucy Docos, gold medal in judo, or Renaud Lavillenie, gold medal in track and field, we had the experience of the emotion. Because sport is emotion. What we are looking for in supporting sport and champion is to create emotion in the company. The creation of emotion in the company is very important. And people are proud, people are happy, and even if they fail, they're happy. Because they are proud to support through their company champion.
That's excellent. And we should come back to that a little bit later for some of the other participants to hear how do they measure the impact of their sponsorships as well. But I'd like to switch to Michel. Michel, you're with Vodafone. Vodafone is a huge sponsor of sports globally. And how do you position your kind of activities on the scale of, let's say, corporate social responsibility on one hand and sponsorships on the other? Not that it's a dichotomy, but there's certainly variation.
So first of all, I am very happy to be here today, 3 years after having launched Vodafone in Qatar. And I have to say that we are a sponsor in this country, as we are the sponsor of the Al Sadd Club. And so that's, let's say, of course, we are very proud to do that in a country which is so focused on sport. So that's a kind of, let's say, a clin d'oeil, as we would say in France, for my presence today on this panel. As far as Vodafone is concerned, that's true that we have a big involvement on one side on sport, but mainly through sponsorship. And you probably all know that we are associated to Formula One around, let's say, a key property, which is a Vodafone McLaren Mercedes team. And on the other side, we have, of course, strong programs in CSR. Up to now, the link in between those two programs was very minimum, meaning that obviously we use our sports drivers, for example, in order to promote our foundations programs, or we use, let's say, our drivers in order to promote some values inside the company, because I guess that what is crucial for a sponsorship program is also to convey the image inside the company and to leverage it inside the company. Of course, we are also trying to promote our technologies, so it's more than just financials, it's also technology transfer, which is important, but that's about it. So I do believe that, let's say, for sponsors such as Vodafone in the future, the question will be about this link in between our CSR programs and sponsorship. I strongly believe that no brand in the future will be able to convey such amount of money in sport if there is no CSR component embedded in it. And so which probably drives at least two major questions. One for the sport itself, because if we want to associate sport to our CSR program, of course the sport has to convey this type of value and probably evolve a little bit, at least for some of them. For example, Formula One, I would, let's say, say that probably they will have to evolve a little bit in order to convey better those type of behaviors, values that are requested in order to promote these type of CSR things. And the second, of course, on the sponsors, which is to really figure out how we can link CSR and, let's say, sponsorship, not just, you know, let's say the piece on the cake, but really embedded in it, whether it's through technologies, whether it's through social inclusion. For example, with, let's say, automotive sport, we're thinking about working on road safety, and I guess that was something which was addressed earlier on during these 2 days. So that's the type of stuff on which we can leverage and work in the future.
Excellent. Thank you. Bernard, let me ask you a question. You were CEO of Quicksilver. You grew the company from a relatively small one to a gigantic global brand. Now you're with a company that's a little different from most of the other companies represented here. Your company is all about yoga. Yoga is obviously not a traditional sport. Some people may not consider it a sport. I'd love to hear, how do you approach your impact on sport through the work that you do in your company?
First of all, it's very humbling to be next to giant like Coca-Cola, Dow, or GOALS, or Vodafone. But it's also very refreshing to be in front of everybody, which is all about sport. And we've been speaking about sport in the last 2 days, most of the time about the Olympics, most of the time about athletics, about football. My life has been spent around sport, which are more lifestyle, which is not about being, you know, competing against each other, but it's more about enjoying life and being outside in the nature. And I believe yoga is a strong sport, and I guarantee if you try it, I mean, it's difficult.
I do fall over quite a bit when I try to stand on one leg.
But I see, so when we grew Quicksilver from around 20 million to 2.5 billion, the role of Quicksilver and my role was to make sure that we promote, we enhance the sport, we try to be inclusive as much as we can, to have all the support from the athlete. It's not really athlete, they are athlete, but not as the athlete we see like with you don't measure their performance. So my job was all about make sure that everybody understand the culture, make sure everybody understand the lifestyle. And then surely after a little while, you have big company who want to be associated with these values about the lifestyle, which with Quicksilver, it was touching the teenagers. And a company like Red Bull went very strong with us, and Red Bull went very, very big and helped us to promote the lifestyle, which at the same time sell our clothes. And I believe our role as a small company with all these big companies is to make sure that we nurture and we keep our sports and our lifestyle and our well-being lifestyle, pretty pure. And we need the help. We need the help of Coca-Cola, of Dow, to leverage. If we want to promote truly a pure lifestyle, we need them to help us to leverage this lifestyle and to go to a larger audience. And I believe this is what they're doing.
So in essence, your current company is supporting something that's healthy for people and is positive for people, and at the same time, you can only make a profit if you create some value for people in terms of health in their lives.
But I really believe that if you truly believe what you're doing, I'm speaking about my little world, sport,
Yes.
And lifestyle and well-being. Sooner or later, people will be associated to you, and it will be like a snowball, especially with internet and everything now. It goes way faster than before. And the value we promote, which is well-being, which is be happy in the present, all these values, they will please, they will be interesting to other companies, like yogurt company, like many other companies. And my role is to make sure that we understand each other. Like, again, it's not only a check to promote an event. It's not only being able to go on TV or whatever. It's truly a partnership from the athlete to a company like us, or Nike is a typical example, and then the other big company.
Okay, great. Well, one of the things that's come up in several of the groups that I've been in so far at this excellent conference is the difference between sponsorship of sports and partnership with sports. And I'm wondering if any of you would like to comment on that and to help us to understand, where do you think corporations should be on that spectrum, and where is your corporation primarily in that spectrum?
Quite happy diving in on that.
Sure.
And I think it's a much-used word, partnership, but it's absolutely where a true sponsorship must be to work. In answering the question, the role of corporations, I think this has changed dramatically over the last 10, 20 years, from possibly purely a transactional situation to now a true partnership. And if I was to summarize the role of corporations, it would be really in three areas. One, knowledge and experience, and that comes over many years of being involved in events. From a Coca-Cola perspective, you mentioned it at the start, we have been the longest running global sponsor together in partnership with the IOC since 1928. We've worked with FIFA since the early 70s. We were the first partner with the Special Olympics since 1968. And those years of partnership build that knowledge and experience where you really get to know each other's business. And it's like the commercial world. If you really want to build a partnership with your customer, you have to start by understanding their business. So one, the role must be knowledge and experience. Two, it must be capability. And if I use London as an example, every single one of the sponsors, Dow, Adidas, Panasonic, Amiga, Coca-Cola, they brought with them a capability to help deliver the games, without which, quite frankly, the games couldn't have been staged. From Coca-Cola's perspective, we provided 18 million soft drinks at games time to the athletes, the media, the spectators. And there's a huge logistical challenge in providing that amount of product. Interestingly enough, 73% of that 18 million was non-sugar, juice, water products. So a wide range of products. In London in 1948, we provided one product. It was Coca-Cola. In 2012, we provided the widest range, 17 different products. So capability is crucial in answering the question of the role of corporations. And finally, of course, there is the finance that companies bring. But I think gone are the days of purely the transactional finance relationship. And today, if a partnership, if a sponsorship is really going to work, it's got to be a partnership. And that partnership will be built on those three platforms: knowledge, capability, and the financial.
Excellent summary. Michel?
No, maybe just to illustrate what has just been said, because I guess that this really the evolution that we have seen in the past 10 years, were not, let's say, so knowledgeable than, let's say, Coca-Cola, of course, but I guess we were engaged in Formula One 10 years ago or something like that. To start with, it was really about transactional, just leverage this platform in order to promote the brand. Have in mind that 12 years ago, Vodafone brand did not exist at all. And let's say 12 years later, that's the 7th brand in the world. So, of course, this property was, let's say, quite useful in order to promote, let's say, a brand and a company. Then, let's say, along the years, it has evolved in a true partnership, even if we don't like the word neither, and which is about, let's say, technology transfer, which has completely changed the way today you can view those type of competitions. And, of course, we are much more involved in the sport itself, in terms of decision where the races should take place, which countries we should be in, how to promote this, how, let's say, this sport should behave. And I guess that, of course, the more you go in that direction, the more demanding you have to be vis-à-vis the sport on one side and the sport vis-à-vis the company on the other side. And both are learning together. I guess that both are bringing different type of expertise, experience, and we can learn from both of us. Probably we are a little bit more organized, professional, but they have more passion. And let's say, so I guess that those are two ways to look at events is extremely fruitful for both sides.
Now, currently, as I understand it within Vodafone, your corporate social responsibility and your sponsorship efforts are separate. Can you explain why that's so and what will happen in the future, do you think?
I guess it's a little bit the story which was explained. I mean, we started with a sponsorship which was mainly commercially focused and probably mainly transactionally focused for, let's say, specific reason, which was to establish a brand. And that's true that on the other side, let's say the CSR component or programs were extremely important in order to make sure that the brand was well perceived in the countries where we do operate, with two platforms which were slightly different. One is global, and where our CSR activities are more local and embedded in communities. My strong belief is that this will have to converge in the future, because in any case, any sponsor will have to make sure that there is a meaningful sense for its, let's say, sponsorship investment.
And why do you
so
say
which is requested by the customers on one side, which is requested by the employees on the other side, or all the stakeholders which are around the company. We have to explain why we invest such an amount of money in this type of stuff, in order to do what, and not only for commercial transactions, but also, let's say, to promote some of the values we are keen to promote.
Terrific. I'd like to see if, would you like to say something,
just to
Pierre?
complete what my colleague said just now. There is no difference between partnership and sponsorship. Both are a way of exchanging competencies, skills, and money. So the real differentiation is what is benefit for product and what is benefit for employee. And sport had to benefit to the employees as to the product. That's very important for me.
Great, thank you. Yes, Bernard.
I may be killed with what I'm going to say, but I'll try.
Okay.
I believe that the big companies are great sponsors, and without them, many things will not be achieved. However, until now, and not all of them, of course, but until now, when time is tough, usually what you cut is sponsoring. And I've seen it in many, many companies, like cutting sponsoring, which I understand times are tough, but it just creates like such a pressure on the sport, on the event, on the athlete, that it jeopardizes the whole system. And I really believe like going from sponsorship to commitment. If a company, I mean like Coca-Cola has done it for forever, commit to a sport, to an event, then it's a really long-term benefit, and it grows the whole thing.
Yeah.
If not, it's very dangerous.
Any disagreement here? Anything to add?
Fully in agreement, and that's probably why the sponsorship, let's say, policy are decided by businesses or by companies for a long-term period. I mean, you don't decide a sponsorship plan or program just for 1 year and then stop it, because in any case, the benefit for the company and the benefit for the sport would not last if it was the case. So I guess that there we can reconcile. But my view, because I agree a little bit with you on one piece, which is that in the macroeconomic conditions that we are facing right now, now, the pressure is huge on all the spend of the company. Hence, let's say, my plea to try to connect sponsorship and CSR in one way or the other to give some sense, meaningful sense to what we're trying to achieve in order for the employees and the customers to clearly understand why we're spending this money and why we should keep this money invested in this area.
Yep.
Okay, great. I'm going to just hold off for a second. I'd love to turn to the audience members and see if they have any questions. I see a bunch of hands up. Let's go to microphone number 2 over here. Sir, please stand up and tell us your name.
My name is Mansour Al-Toki from Oman. I appreciate being here and share and know what you have been said about sport. With related to the role of corporations into the sport, the market of sponsorship for mega events, it's already established, it's well known, it's been done for so many years. But now we are looking for the next generation, the generation which are here. We are looking at sponsorship, our corporation role, which helps transform the sport for the next generation. For example, tying the role of corporation with the social responsibility, sustainability, that's what is needed. So, for example, in most countries, physical education in schools, they are suffering getting sponsors to small events. Is the corporation can really support that kind of trends? A lot of athletes in the university are dropping out because of educational problems into the sport.
Good.
Can we get scholarship from the corporations?
I think we have your question. Thank you very much. Let's see if anyone...
More than happy to dive in. I think it's a great question. They might have switched me on. No, I'm back on. Great question. And let me give you 2 examples, because you're very right. Sometimes big sponsors are seen as maybe just sponsoring the elite and the high level and maybe not caring about what's happening beneath the surface. Well, 2 things that I'm very proud of that the Coca-Cola company did in the lead up to London and are also leaving behind were relatively very low-level sponsorship and support programs. And arguably, they're the type of programs that any company in the room here today could also look to replicate. One was something that we called our Academy of Excellence. This was a very simple idea that was worked up over lunch, actually, with one of the members of the audience here, John Steele. And through this program, we worked with the English Institute of Sport to identify young aspirational hopefuls for the Olympic and Paralympic Games. These weren't your high-profile, super-duper athletes. These were people who were sacrificing their lives to try and get to London. So we flushed out a number of these. Sadly, only 15. I wish we'd gone with 150 because it worked so well. We provided them with Coca-Cola contracts. They worked for 2 weeks. 2 weeks a year, getting work experience. We worked with them to go into our depots and sites to talk about their journey. And we paid them a relatively small sum of money. But what it provided them with was Coca-Cola on their CV. It provided them with work experience. And it provided them with a glimpse, some knowledge about life after sport. In fact, half of them qualified for the games, half of them didn't. 2 of them are now working in our business. One of them was actually snapped up by one of our biggest competitors in GB. But they've got great jobs. Now, that was a very simple program which didn't cost a lot of money, but really got to the grassroots and helping aspirational athletes. Okay. The other very quick example I'll use is we partnered with a local charity called Street Games. Now, Street Games is a charity in Great Britain that provides sporting facilities in very deprived areas around the country. At the time when we partnered with them, they had around 35,000 participants. Now they're up to 110,000 plus. 60 of them we provided the opportunity to run with the torch, and 40 of them worked with us on our venue operations team at Games Time, and also got very valuable work experience. And we've just signed another 3-year sponsorship agreement with Street Games, and we're very proud to work with that charity. So there's maybe just 2 examples. Certainly the first, I'd argue, any corporation could reach out and help and provide that sort of work experience. Because once again, it's not transactional. It's giving an athlete, I would argue, what they really need. Support, work experience, and a glimpse of life after sport.
Great, thank you. Well, unfortunately, our time has run out. I have about 30,000 more questions I'd love to ask the panel, and I just wanted to ask you please to join me in thanking this excellent panel for this discussion. Okay, thank you.